If you have ongoing exposure to controlling people, it's a virtual certainty that you're going to experience blurry boundaries, which is why I've created the extensive online course called This Is Me, Establishing Boundaries with the Controllers in Your Life. There's a link below that will give you all of the details, and I hope that you would find it therapeutic. As healthy individuals engage with other people, they have the goal of wanting to connect in such a way where it can be mutually meaningful and rewarding. Plain and simple. That's what people on Team Healthy do. When narcissists engage with other individuals, they don't have that same kind of goal. They're thinking, how can you people out there feed my psychological neediness? Here I am. What are you going to do to validate me? In other words, when you engage with narcissists, they see you potentially as not someone to have mutually rewarding relationships with, but they see you as narcissistic supply. Now, over time, you can think, this is wearing thin and it's not very gratifying whatsoever. And so you want to unbind yourself from that narcissist. So the number one challenge that you're going to have as you unbind is stop becoming their narcissistic supply. And it's so important for you to realize how much of their way of engaging with you is tied to that one huge theme. For example, I want you to just think about some of the primary ingredients of narcissism. And as I share some of these with you, I want you to begin thinking, how does this imply or indicate that there's a neediness that's pushing this along? For example, we know that narcissists want to control, and they specifically want to control you. That's their neediness. I've got to get you on my agenda so that validates me. Narcissists are quite willing to manipulate and use people. Why? Because of that same neediness. Likewise, they want to have the final word. That's part of their neediness. They're willing to bend truth as they interact and as they report things, which means they like to lie a lot. That's part of their psychological neediness. Whenever you have a story to tell or an event to discuss, they have to one-up it. They have to tell a better story. That one-upmanship, that's part of their psychological neediness. They want to be admired. They want to give you advice that you didn't ask for. But again, that's part of their neediness. They need to be the important person in your life. They have to create an idealistic public persona. That too is part of their neediness. They must win in discussions. They'll cut people down as a result, and they offer much criticism. All of that is part of their neediness. And as they interact with you and so many other individuals, they're looking and thinking, okay, what are you going to do to satisfy my neediness? That's their narcissistic supply. Now, I want you to think, in what ways might you inadvertently feed into that narcissistic supply? And some of these things may feel backwards, but that's the nature of the beast when we're talking about you engaging with narcissists. For example, part of the ways that you can give supply to a narcissist is when they argue, you argue right back. It's like, okay, good, I'm getting to you, aren't I? Or another way is you try to point out their illogic. And of course, again, they'll argue back. And then in the meantime, it's like, okay, you need me to set you straight. And even your attempts to bring them into reason and logic, that gives them supply. Or it may be that you'll ask them cornering questions, like, why did you have to treat this person this way? Or how did you come up with that conclusion? And you want to back them into a corner. It's like, okay, game on. And that becomes part of the way you supply them because they see it as a competition and a game. Or another way that you give supply is you can go into the high justification mode. You have to rationalize yourself. And they're thinking, good, obviously I'm important because you're working so hard to get me to concur with you. They love that. Or in addition, when they confront you with their demands, you may just finally capitulate against your best judgment and say, okay. That's part of their giving of supply. Sometimes when you're with that narcissist and you're frustrated, you might cry. And they're thinking, oh, this is so good. I'm winning now. Look at you blubbering over there. Or you might try to accuse them. Or sometimes you'll get rebellious and you'll act out behind the scenes. And then if they catch you, it's like, oh, this proves why I'm the better person. Or you may just simply collapse. All of this is you playing into their game, which feeds their ego in its own backward sort of way. And the narcissist is thinking, as long as you keep acting this way, I can work with this. I can make it such that I'm going to come out on the high end of the equation. I'm powerful. This proves how I need to control you. And you are remaining in the role of the one who offers narcissistic supply. Any kind of response, whether it's positive or negative, that indicates that you're wanting to make them different or they're getting to you becomes a source for their narcissistic supply. It's a big, huge game. And I know part of the ability to unbind yourself is to, first of all, just see the whole game for what it is. So what if you were to think, this is crazy. I see it. I realize that all this control and self-absorption that they have is part of their psychological neediness, and they want me to feed right into it. I'm not doing it anymore. When you get to that point, I'm hoping there's one huge word that you can focus on that will help you cease going into that supply mode. And that's the word freedom. When I talk about unbinding yourself from the narcissist, the implication is when you're bound, you're tied to them, you're tethered to them. But you know what? In truth, you really aren't unless you go along with their games. They want to own you. They want to control you. They want to keep you inside their fence. But what if you were to begin thinking, I don't need for the narcissist to give me validation or affirmation. I like that kind of stuff, but the bottom line is I'm free with or without their concurrence. I don't have to act according to their agenda. I'm free and I get to decide what my agenda says. And by the way, when I talk about my agenda, it's not a superimposing thing. Narcissists, they want to superimpose. No, I'm free. I don't have to do that one either. And I certainly don't need to get into debates, which means that we're just getting into a convincing battle. By the way, convince, the V-I-N-C part comes from the Latin root word that means to conquer. I'm not in a conquering game with this person. I'm free. You're free too. You can think whatever you want to think, but I am too. And I feel no need to get into that back and forth kind of exchange. That doesn't work anymore for me. I can manage events with or without that person's cooperation. I'm going to have a freedom in the way that I do life and how I make my priorities. I'm not going to be their supply. I'm not going to get into all that gamey stuff because even if it's awful for both of us, they're thinking, but the game is still going, which means I still have the opportunity to be in charge. I see it and I'm not playing that game anymore. My emotional stability is my responsibility. Just as the narcissist's emotional stability is his or her responsibility. I have my priorities. The narcissist may have their separate priorities. And having my distinctive is good. And if the narcissist doesn't concur, I still have my priorities and I'm going to go along with it. I'm comfortable with my values. I'm comfortable with my standards and my opinions. And as I look at who I am and how I manage life, I'm going to conclude I get to freely embrace who I am. And when the narcissist says, oh, well, come on back into the argument with me, please. Come on back and do that bickering stuff with me. I like that. It's like, nope, I'm done. And if you want to have me as your narcissistic supply, it's going to dry up. And when the narcissist condemns you for being yourself and having your freedom, again, they're trying to suck you in as supply. It's like, no, I don't accept your condemnation. Unfortunately, Mr. or Mrs. Narcissist, your opinion has become more and more irrelevant. I see you for what you are. You're trying to make me responsible for your quality of life. That makes no sense. That's not something that I want to do. By the way, we have a word that describes all of this. It's the word codependency. I don't know if you've ever noticed that codependence and control are two sides to the same coin. When you have a high dependence upon someone else, it's in your vested interest to control them. And so narcissists are trying to play this codependent game with you. And it's like, no, I've had my independence, my freedom. You get to be you. It's where you are. I get to be me. That's where I am. And so knowing that they're going to keep saying, please feed my supply, I'm hoping you can think to yourself, the narcissist may see me as someone to be used and someone to be manipulated for the sake of propping up their inadequacies and weaknesses. I see that for what it is. They're in great emotional pain and duress, but the problem is they can't come to terms with it, and they can't even admit that it's there. I, on the other hand, see myself as someone who has a good heart, but also as someone who refuses to play the role of their psychological enabler. That's what this is all about. And if they're wanting me to do that, that's not a healthy relationship. I'm on team healthy. Each person takes responsibility for what they are. And when they complain for the fact that that's what I'm doing, that just tells me how far off base they are. Now, I hope that videos such as this give you some good food for thought. The whole point is when we talk about surviving narcissism is to know what we're dealing with and to respond in a insightful and meaningful kind of way. If you've not already hit that subscribe button, I would strongly encourage you to do so, and that notification bell that comes along with it will keep more videos coming at you. I know that when you talk about, or when you hear about these kind of topics, you want to talk it over sometimes with a therapist or someone who can help you sift it out. If you have someone in your area, I would certainly encourage you to seek that out. Or if you would prefer otherwise, we have an online resource. We have a sponsor, and there's a link below that can take you to online therapy. And there's a whole host of therapists and people that can help you out that you can select from. And I would encourage you to go to the link and seek that out as the need is evident. In addition, we have my courses, and these aren't just one-off seminars, although we have those too, but they're extensive numbers of videos and teachings that go along with that. I put a lot of work into it. It would require a lot of work from you, but it's highly therapeutic. This is me about setting boundaries, free to be about finding yourself despite the controllers. Also, and we have links below for that. Also, we have my books and other resources. You want to unbind, and the way to unbind is to cease playing the role of the enabler and cease being their supply. And when you do that, that narcissist is still going to flail and they'll hold grudges. That's where they are. But I'm hoping it positions you to have a sense of self-respect and dignity, which then becomes the foundation for you to live in your place of peace. I so want you to find your peace.